Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Gretna Bill Show. Megan, Laura.
Yeah.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
How are you guys? Thanks for coming out today.
Yeah.
It's a nice day for a podcast, as we talked about earlier, because it's raining, so we're not all stressed about getting out on our bikes. So how do we get here? Let's see. First of all, I just met you today, Laura, but I've known you guys for quite a while in one capacity or another. But then when I did the Chris Horner podcast, hope you guys had a chance to look at some of that.
Sure.
And I got to thinking, and Chris Horner was pretty much spot on. It's like, man, where is road racing? Both in our local lives here, but then on the national scale, we talked about that big gap going to the States to Europe. It's like huge abyss in there to be overcome by young cyclists. So then I thought, well, what can I do about that, if any? Because right after that podcast, they canceled Tour of Utah because they couldn't get sponsors. So then I started going over the list that Chris Horner was going over, and I started thinking Amgen Tour of California, Tour of Georgia, the whole Philly Lancaster Classic Series, Fitchburg, so on and so forth. So that's when I thought of you guys, because I knew you were promoting. And then when we had Wolfgang on that show, he was saying, you got to talk to Laura. She's actively involved in the race scene in the Mid-Atlantic and more than that, actually. So that's when I contacted you guys, and I said, man, let's do a podcast and talk about where we're at with it. And maybe we can generate some momentum, and maybe some other people start saying, maybe we need to promote road races. So having said that all, where do we want to start in this round table?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's start if we're talking Laura first. So I remember going to the Reading 120 in 2015, and I kind of knew of Eustace, and I knew that John had done a lot of stuff. That's his name, right?
Yeah.
He'd done a lot of stuff with the Philly races and stuff. He was a pretty good promoter, and I forget how we ended up in the VIP tent. But yeah, it was right there. What a great race! The screen was up there. And then I had done the amateur race before that, or ride, and I thought, this is just a great day. And boy, we so need more of this. And I was hoping that this would be more like this. Who doesn't want to do a 120?
Yeah.
And then drink beer and watch pros ride and stuff. So when I checked that you were so involved with that and really helped John put it on, I think that's our starting point. So then that's when you became really fired up about race promotion, right? So then where did it go from there?
Well, so the first year of the 120 was in 2015, and I live in Reading, and I just volunteered for the race. I housed a team from Mexico at my house, and then I helped with the kids event. And then afterwards I sent an email. It's like, I have some suggestions for volunteers and I can help next year. And they're like, oh, you're in charge of volunteers. And I was like, okay.
We call that voluntold.
Yeah.
Voluntold. Good one.
So then I took over the volunteers for the race in 2016. And then John was like, oh, I run this race in Doylestown too. Like, I think you might have a knack for this. You want to help with that? And I'm like, sure. Okay. So I started helping with the race there, and it just sort of snowballed. And then unfortunately we lost the Reading 120, which is, we were kind of talking before we got on this about those kinds of things, which I feel like we can talk about more later. But it just snowballed, and I started doing more and more with the Bucks County race. And then at the end of 18, I took that over. And I was doing events. I was the events organizer in Reading, where I live for the city. And I liked that, but it was kind of like, oh, put on a concert where people come out and like stand on the street and drink beer and eat food, but there wasn't like a feeling with it. And with the bike racing, I was like, okay, this is like a feeling. This is something I can get behind, and I ride, and it's inspiring like healthy lifestyles, and it's like inspiring people to get outside. And yeah, it was hooked.
So good.
Or as Eustace said, I'm the biggest sucker he could find.
Truth. I hate to say it, but I found Lauren for the Tour de Gretna the first year in 2016. And I was like, man, I don't want to do this myself. There's a lot of work here. And he's like, I'll help you. And then we were both kind of like getting close to the day. And it's like, wow, we really stepped in a lot of shit here.
Yeah.
So race promotion is some difficult, hairy stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh,
you got to navigate so many things. Like I heard municipality and stuff, and that's like the dirty word, man. It's like, how do you get through to the people in the town to let you have these events?
Yeah. you need to wear so many hats to be able to put a race on. I think it's like, oh, I put a race on and on day of it's there and I get to hang out with the riders and it's cool and give awards. And it's like, there's so many, it's like, you have to be the face in front of the municipality. You have to go out and get the money. You have to talk to all the parents who bring their kids out and all the volunteers. And then you have to make all your sponsors happy. You have all the riders to deal with. And then it's like, oh, there's something wrong with the website. I have to fix that. And we need this design thing. And oh shit, it's race day and this didn't get delivered. And we have to figure out how to make this quicker, fix it. And I don't know.
Don't forget about knocking on all the doors, telling people you're going to close their neighborhood for 8 hours on a Sunday.
And that's the worst part, right? Because then afterwards, everyone's like, you held my up. I had to go here and you held me up for 10 minutes. And it's like, I don't want that race here ever again kind of a thing. It's like, okay. Yeah,
and you do like all these things and it's crazy, crazy, crazy. And then race day comes. And it's like a blur and it's over and everyone's like, that was the greatest thing ever. And you're like, was it?
We often say that. It's like, you work so hard.
I missed it.
And it's over in a day. And then afterwards you're just like.
that lonely, empty feeling.
Right, definitely.
Like, what do I do tomorrow?
Postpartum.
Right? Like,
postpartum.
I have hours of video to edit. That's what I get to do.
Yeah.
So it would be nice if there would be some kind of a, well, with team cycling, you have your team and it's the Euro style where the local team / club puts on a race. That's part of the original history of racing, right, in America. And they got that from old Europe, right? So the deal was that in order to keep your team, in order to keep your USA cycling team membership, right, there was originally a requirement, correct me as I go here, that you had to put on at least one race to sanction your club.
Yeah.
Is that a true statement?
Yeah, it was. And I hear that USA Cycling is looking at bringing that back, but I don't know what the time frame for that is.
And it could be a mountain bike race or a cross race.
Yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm. It could even be a Grand Fondo, I think.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's got to be something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your club didn't pay its dues, so to speak. And that's how you keep racing going on in America. Well, that system is definitely broken. If that was the case, it was working for a while. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely broken now. For a lot of reasons, obviously COVID being number one.
Yeah.
So anyway, you guys are trying to fix that, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. So this year, what races are you going to be working on and probably have?
Well, I just put on Bucks County by myself, but then I help with other races. And that's like Megan, I think we connected on Instagram.
There you go.
First.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, we're two women doing
this.
Right,
that do this race thing.
And we should connect. And
let's
it was
be
like,
besties.
Yeah, back and forth. But then we just realized there's so much value in talking and working with other people who are doing this because
it's an interesting industry because we're not competitors, even though we're doing the exact same thing. Like it's not, our races aren't on the same day. They're not in the same town. They're both criteriums because I'm race director for 2 of those, but it's like I can learn from you and you can learn from me as far as the different ideas and things. And it's almost like what they call a 20 group, which is where 20 people come together and just share ideas. And they're from different parts of the United States and in the same industry. And it's like, okay, well, this works over in New Jersey. Why can't it work here in Pennsylvania? That's a great idea. I would have never thought about that. So.
Yes. Same with NICA. And I noticed that they bring people in from all over and they don't need large groups, but like a small group that talks can influence, like, how did you do that? How did you get around that municipality ordinance and so on and so forth? But anyway, so what races did you do last year and what are you planning on doing this year?
So last year we did the Hummelstown Criterium. We did Punktoberfest, which is a NICA event, the Interscholastic. I think Taylor was on not too long ago. Her team was on there.
Nice.
We did Warlock's Winter Challenge, which was a mountain bike race.
So much fun.
Lupine was a part of, and we thank you for that. And then we do the Deborah Barish Memorial Kings Gap Time Trial, which is really the one that started it all for me with the race directing, and that'll be our 4th one this year, and it's 3 miles up a hill. Put it in your big ring and spin and go. I mean, it's a really laid back end of the season, last Sunday in September. Come out with your friends and enjoy the close of the racing season. And then this year we're doing all of those. And then we're also going to add, we just picked up my partner Lauren and I, who we started our own company, On Time Productions, for race promotion. And we picked up Race Avenue from team through it all. So we are now the race directors of that. And after a 2-year hiatus, that one's back. And we're super excited because as you talked about on your previous podcast, Lancaster has a rich history of racing. And we're excited to bring back that classic 4-corner criterium. And then we got a really, I wanted to make sure I mentioned this today, a really special event. It's a fondo for a guy named Jim Wilson, just a fun ride. He was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer all throughout his body. One of the most in shape 50-year-olds you will ever know.
Ever.
Has a heart of gold, is the most positive person that I've ever met in my entire life. It's the last Sunday in March. Look it up on Bike Reg. It's called Riding with Jim. Just come out and ride your bike and be thankful for life and friends and have a good time.
Yeah, that's got to be done by all of us for sure. That's good stuff.
So that's what, 7 events. And
7, that's pretty good.
Maybe an 8th one that we've got in the works a little bit. Little teaser, so stay tuned.
So that logo is really cool, Josh. On Time Productions. I love that. So we'll get that on the podcast screen. And so maybe we can contact you guys from other people and say, hey, how do I do this?
Yeah.
It's really easy. Here's what you do. You just get your application.
Write me a check.
Yeah, exactly. It's real simple. Press hard, 3 copies. Yeah, so, you talked about tradition. Well, Race Ab, man, I can remember that back in the 60s. It was the big thing. So you're right. The tradition is rich in Lancaster. And then, of course, the Lancaster Philly series was always really big downtown. But that Race Avenue crit used to get people from all over, New Zealand, Australia, especially. Because I had some friends that lived on President's Avenue that grew up there, and they actually hosted people from out of state. Out of the country a lot during those late 60s and till the early 70s when it disappeared. And then, of course, our team through it all, cycling brought it back, and it was really going good. And then COVID hit, and here we are. And so I'm so jazzed that you guys were able to get that because it's the new energy that we needed to keep that race going. And it is a classic 4-corner crit right by Franklin Marshall University, and just a wonderful day. And it's Father's Day. So folks, I already registered. The reason why I registered is this is also stuff that I get out of my podcast, because then I listen to myself on the podcast and I'm like, yeah, we'll do it. And so I think at one point I said, if you don't register, I think it was with the blind runner, Jason Romero, if you don't register for something, then you haven't made it reality till you actually register. Because the minute you register, then that's on my mind. Like, how the hell am I going to stay in a crit? I haven't been in a crit in 3 years. And so then that's where Tuesday night garden club ride comes in, chasing him around and figuring, okay, I at least got to stay on his wheel, because if I can't stay on his wheel, how the hell am I going to stay on the wheel of the Peloton during that Race Avenue crit? So I registered.
Good.
So you said today you have 11.
Yep.
But we don't have
2 days ago.
we don't have the Hummelstown crit up yet, right?
It's registrations live for that also.
Oh, sweet. And that day is
July 9th.
So you got the 19th of June and then July 9th.
And the Hummelstown crit, I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but it's a brand new route for 2022. We got approved from the borough, and we were talking earlier about municipalities. Hummelstown Bureau is amazing. They have been so helpful. The police chief, the mayor, and the borough manager have been instrumental in bringing everything home for us and really making it so that we can do what we do, and we have the support of the borough. And I just wanted to say thank you to them. But we are closing Main Street. The start finish, right, is going to be right by the Warwick Hotel. It's going to be a Main Street, a little bit slight incline uphill finish. But then on either side of the square in Hummelstown is going to be an arts and crafts fair and food truck festival.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So we're looking for vendors for the arts and food truck festival. HummelstownCriterium.com. Forms on there to fill out if you'd like to set your booth up there.
So remember we used to have the crit in downtown Lidditz? Another great crit. And they had like a beer fest and the shops were open. And you talk about a spectator experience that benefits all the people of the town.
Yeah.
Financially, commercially, all the vendors come out and gets the people out together outside in the fresh air.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal thing. And you don't need an infrastructure.
No.
You don't need to build the fairgrounds. You don't need to build, a factory or whatever. This is how you bring revenue into your community and still improve the quality of life of everybody and the downtown areas. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And you get to introduce people that to bike races that don't know what they are.
Yeah.
They think it's the Tour de France, where it's not.
Yes.
Which, in the end,
it's different. It's NASCAR
at
on
the end
bikes.
of the day, that helps all of us, because when you do these types of things, then people see who you guys are and they're like, you know what, cycling is pretty cool. And all of a sudden they're not as nasty to you on the road. Perhaps. And if it just changes one person, that's a victory, right?
Exactly.
It's like, no, I saw this guy's racing. They're dedicated.
Right.
They have as much right to the road as we do. Let's chill out.
You let your local NICA organization, or in Pennsylvania, it's Pickle, and you let the Harrisburg Bicycle Club set up a booth at the Arts and Crafts Fair so that people can get used to, there's a whole organization here that's dedicated to cycling and cycling legislature and cycling safety and education and
I think
all of that.
Dave Pryor, you guys know Dave?
Unpaved,
Unpaved. So him and Mike Kuhn. So he was telling me that on June 4th, I think, they're having just such an event in downtown Harrisburg to celebrate the greenways. And so it's all people that have contributed in some way or another. And it's put on by that, I think that Susquehanna River Tourist Bureau that encompasses all that area, which really got behind Unpaved this last year, more so than ever.
Right.
They realized what an economic benefit, and they have the kids' art centers, and it's a festival, and the whole weekend is just something. Everybody's in there having a good time and walking around their city, and it's just a wonderful thing to expose everybody to, not just children, but everybody. It's like, wow, this is a pretty cool scene. And so that's what they're doing, is they're trying to make that connection and spread more goodwill and say, look at all the things you can do on a bicycle, the greenways promotion, blah, blah, blah. And they're also behind the race scene. So when you start to combine all that, racing with community, with awareness, and man, that's good stuff for Central PA. And it's undeniable, which then begs the question, why are municipalities so resistant to all this? It's like, it's a no-brainer. You'd be easier to put on a parade and close down the streets, like a Halloween parade or something, than, God forbid, have a bike race.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's maybe part of it, in that people just think bike race and it's only people who are interested in racing would be interested. Whereas you say parade, it's like, well, anybody will come out and watch. And I actually put on parades in Reading too.
I didn't need to. You get me.
I love a parade. A bike race is a parade.
We all love a good parade, right?
It's just hard to organize a bike race or a parade.
I shouldn't have picked.
Race, a parade.
I shouldn't have picked on the parade.
No. But yeah, if you have other things, like you said about the Arts Festival, Doylestown Arts Festival, if you have a music or something like that where you can get people there and get them exposed to it, they'll realize it's more than just racing, like the whole culture.
This is pretty cool. Look, here they come. Like, I've seen that happen before.
How about this, Lauren? Tour de Gretna. What did we have? We had tents, we had music, we had beer sampling and festival. We had booze there with some, not only teams were lined up, you could see all the team tents, but then we had manufacturers there. Who do we have there? Well, besides Guerciotti and Lupine, obviously, but we had some other people there, and we had celebrities.
Green Mountain Cyclery.
Green Mountain was there in a big way, and then Floyd showed up, so we had celebrities, and then we had the railroad bed ride, which was so cool because we told kids and everything. We had the rodeo, and it's like, bring whatever bike you want, and the Gretna was perfect because you could go onto the rail bed and go to 3 or 4 vantage points riding your bike and still observe everything, then listen to some music, then do some rodeo, and food vendors were there. Yeah. So it was a whole day thing. Yeah, it was so cool.
We do during Doylestown. When I took the race over in 2018, I was like, everyone can come out and just watch the race, and that's fine, but maybe you really want to feel what that feels like. So now I added a segment. It's just 20 minutes, but where the course is open to anyone to ride on it during it, which is so awesome. And that's like, the NICA team comes out and they ride, and there's some clubs in Doylestown and they come out and ride. But I think also it's like, my kid's racing today, and I could ride one lap with my kid. And then when my kid's out there, I can feel, and all of a sudden you're out on the course afterwards watching, you're like, I know what that corner feels like. Oh, whoa, they're going up that hill. I remember what that feels like, and just connects you so much more.
In the early days of racing, going back to that club setup, that I was so familiar with up until, 5 or 6 years ago, and it seemed to vanish, was a category called citizens race. Well, now you just have, cat 1, 2, 3, or 5, and that's but citizens, I'm glad they named it that, because it separated it from racing, and they only gave you 1 day license, and you really weren't supposed to be a racer, and you really didn't necessarily. It was like, how they have football practice the day before the game. They have their pads on, but they don't really hit. That was kind of the citizens race. There maybe somebody was trying to win it, but it wasn't about that. It was, I don't want to say it was like a parade or anything, but it was definitely a different mindset. And that got people out to say, I don't know about this racing, but I'd like to race around the Race Avenue Crit just to see what the heck. I know you guys, you got a lot of money going on and every category is filled. And that's kind of why it disappeared, because you didn't want to charge, $40 for a citizen's tour of the race course. But then on a bigger scale, that was kind of like the Reading 120 when we went out, because you already had the course. That was a long ass course, and you already had it. You already had your police and your fire and your marshals at the various corners. And so why not let the public go through it first, and then come back? It was such a great setup. I would love to see that wherever there's a pro race,
Yeah, we did that at Doylestown too. Yeah, and they kind of try to time it so those people come back right as the pros are coming back into town, and then they're all jazzed up.
So
and then they stay and watch the pros.
Totally. Yeah.
Do you ever get a chance to watch some of the trainerroad.com podcasts?
I haven't.
So they're pretty cool. You got Chad and Nate and, Jonathan and Amber, right? And they're all different. They were different pros, or they talk about training techniques and so on and so forth. And they always have pretty good subject topics. And one of them was just last Thursday, I think. They're usually Thursdays they're released, was about crit racing and how to get back into it. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about, what you think about that. So first, I gave you my example. Like, I don't even know anything about crit racing. It's like, did I ever do those things? And we used to do them every Saturday, and sometimes 2 or 3 in a day, or Spittle would do 3 or 4, right? Okay, shout out. So, I've got a lot of work to do. I've got to get my mind ready and so on and so forth. So they were talking about some techniques to get into a crit race for the first time you haven't been in one. And it's just, a lot of it was just mind preparation and go, okay, I don't want to expect too much from me, from anybody. Anyway, what I wanted to say was that they had a whole bunch of techniques, but what I wanted to ask you is that I hear this a lot now, more than ever. It's like, hey, did you hear about Race Avenue Crit? Are you guys getting in? Well, I don't know. I think I might be doing a gravel race. I don't know who's going to be at these crits anymore. I've got this gravel race, and I got Parker's Dam, and I got this to do, and then I got this mountain bike race. And so I'm hearing a lot of excuses, a lot of them centered around the fact that, geez, it's not like you can just jump in a crit. You can jump in a gravel race and get your butt kicked and just be feeling good about it. But if you jump in a crit and then you're off the back after 10 minutes and go, holy shit, this isn't fun. So I know that was a lot in one bite, but I do hear that, and that's legit. And that may be your only barrier. So what do you think about that?
I was going to say, I think some of that maybe goes back to what you were saying with the clubs. Like, if you think about if there was before this history of the clubs and the clubs starting the races and teaching people to race, and if we've moved away from that, that might be some of the hesitation. But there are some races, like the race down in Temple in March, typically they do like a crit clinic as part of it. And I know people have asked Doylestown to do it. We just don't have space in our schedule. But I'd say that's something as like a race promoter, like if that's something that can be offered more at some of the early spring races to get people more comfortable. And some courses are more wide and open and how the turns are. And some like Doylestown's like tight and fast and technical.
What do you think?
Blue Mountain Velo, which is my cycling club that I'm the vice president of, and Lauren is actually the president, we do a crit clinic it was with Keith Klein ran it last year. It was every Tuesday. So it coincided with your garden, your book club, and your stamp club. And it would roll around Milton Hershey School.
There's a stamp club?
Yeah, that's you're above that. You're fine. That's for people like me. But we would roll around and
Pretty cool, though.
we do crit drills, right? Like start at the back, sprint to the front, or stay on the front, and we just do like a 1.5 mile loop
Where
around.
did you do this at?
We left from the same parking lot. We would just go around the Milton Hershey School campus on those roads that didn't have much traffic.
It'd be great if you could do that on another night, just so we don't have to miss garden stamp,
Stamp
or
club.
book.
Well, we also thought about if you wanted to take a day off from one or you wanted to mix it up, that way everybody was there.
Yeah.
We could vary the days though, but we've always had it posted on Blue Mountain Velo uses Meetup, the Meetup app for all of our rides, because we have 60 members and not all of them are on Facebook. So it's really hard to communicate via Facebook, and so you can join our Meetup group. Even though you are not a paying member of Blue Mountain Velo, anyone can join the Meetup group. But in order to be able to post rides, you have to be a paying member, and it's $25 a year. So it's not going to break your bank.
Yeah.
We spend more than that on bicycle tubes. So
that's the only reason. That's the only reason why I was, and I didn't step up to do any of the work, but I was, when Through It All left, I'm like, man, we don't do any races anymore. So, but that gets back to the whole, beginning, like, what's your license number? What team do you ride for? And then they check to see if it's a legit team, because people put down anything, and if it's not a legit team, then that means that you don't put on a race or you're not pressured into putting a race. So the whole thing kind of all fits together. Am I making sense with that?
Yeah.
And that's what we need to kind of get back to. It's like, because then you have some ownership for at least one race, and you go out and marshal, or you have clinics like you're doing. You get me. I mean,
Yeah.
So yeah, I missed that. But anyway, I don't know how I'm going to get ready for this crit race, and I
come out to my crit clinics.
There we go.
I'll give you the address.
There's only okay. I think Josh is going to post the schedule for the Mid-Atlantic and specifically Central PA. But like outside of the Temple crit series, what else is coming up that we can get into? I see Lower
Providence.
And that is that it?
Oh, there's Royersford,
Yeah.
which also has a flea market to it. That's at the Royersford High School. Last year, for the past couple years, it was known as the Pickle Juice Criterium.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you.
There's Riverton, which is just over the bridge from Philadelphia. That one's the second Sunday in June.
I think that one's Father's Day typically, or it falls typically around that.
It's before.
Because it's like Harlem falls on the same date as it sometimes.
Oh, okay. Riverton is June 12th.
Okay, the 12th.
So yeah, it's the week before Race Avenue. I knew we weren't on the same day because that guy's, his name's Carlos, and I called him on the phone just to confirm that his date was when we were making sure that, Race Avenue has historically always been on Father's Day, but it hadn't been going for 2 years. I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
That's a fun race.
Yeah.
Riverton.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, you feel like you're in this small town family, like everybody knows each other and hangs out, and everyone comes out and parties on their lawns.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's like half a dozen crits that we can get pumped up for, right?
Oh, totally.
Just in this
That are
area,
within an hour and a half drive.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
for sure. Yeah.
There's 4 in Pennsylvania? 5. Mainline, you, my 2, Colleen.
And then I think Ken will do Lower Providence twice again.
And there's Piscatello's doing the one that's up at Rodale, I think.
doing the one. And maybe
Joe Piscatello's law firm.
Yeah.
Might be.
Those guys are
NEPA.
steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easton now. There's one in Easton now. So
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah. That's
So we got a full crit schedule all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's
Just today, we came up with it.
yeah.
Beautiful. That's why we're here. So again, and I don't want to keep beating on this theme, but then what about like all the people that have gone from crit racing and may never come back? We can't worry about them, right? Because they're doing gravel almost all the time now. And when they're not doing gravel, they're training for, like a lot of people. I just talked to Scott Gray. He got in dirty. Well, it's Unbound now. It used to be DK 200, right? And there's a lot of people taking on a lot of big challenges that are so booked up. They're already saying, okay, I'm doing this at the beginning of June and I'm doing this in July. I would think that sandwiching a crit in there is good for your foot speed and stuff. It doesn't interfere.
A criterium is a 1 hour VO2 max effort.
Yeah.
That's going to help you on any gravel race that you do.
So the question is, just as long as they don't step on each other, we should be able to copacetically move forward here and get everybody a piece of the action that they need.
Right.
So are there any bigger races, like when I talked earlier about Fitchburg being gone, is there any, like Green Mountain stage race? Is there anything else on the calendar? Like Somerset's probably gone in the mid-Atlantic-ish area that we have to look forward to. Like, are there any stage races legit?
Yeah.
Plan to Peak, 2 days of Buffalo. That's in August. That's the first weekend in August.
What's the Hero de Cello in New Jersey? There's a stage race. I don't know if that happened during the past years or is coming back. Yeah, well, that's a hard thing. And that maybe goes on to, like, we were talking before we came on, like, municipalities. Like, crits are great because you're in one town. It's a contained area. So it's easy for police, fire, mayors, things like that to wrap their heads around it, how they're going to keep that area safe. And it's also good for spectators because it repeats. But I get, like, a lot of riders are like, we want road races, we want circuit races. But that is a different can of worms then when you're going out. Like when we did the Ready 120, 90 of those miles went through the entire county. And oh my God, it was like 17 different municipalities. And how do you get them all to work together?
What a pain.
And I know when you guys did Tour de Gretna, you had to deal with, 3 different municipalities?
And that was a pain, just 3.
Yeah.
But you were asking about criteriums. I think part of the problem with a criterium too is, and this is completely different from anything we've talked about, is people focus on their numbers. Right? Their power numbers. What's my power number on a criterium? And that's why you were saying people don't think they can do it. Well, my FTP is this. And they have it right in their face on their Garmin screen when they're racing. There's no way I can go over this number. My body can't do it. And I think that's part of the mental block that people have and why they're scared of doing criteriums because, I'm not in good enough shape to do it. Well, you know what? Just get out there and ride your bike. I don't even pay attention to my speed when I'm in a criterium. I don't even have it on my screen because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how fast I'm going on a 4-corner crit. It matters what the person in front of me is doing. I mean, I could be going 17 miles an hour and I could be with the main group. And that's fast enough for that particular race.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do is to throw all those power numbers out, FTP, everything out. Whether you had a great winter or not a great winter, or you haven't raced in a crit in a while, throw all those power numbers out and just, like I did, say, I'm going to that race. Got to kind of be mindful of it, and I'll get there. And then don't beat yourself up as to the power numbers or the lack of the power or the lack of days actually racing at top speed. Just get in there. And oftentimes I'm surprised at myself. It's like, man, I was able to hang, most of the race. Which would be never possible on Tuesday nights because I just don't turn myself out in that, in and out. Well, and the other thing that goes on that doesn't go on, for example, in the Garden Club, is that in a crit, no one's going to want to go off the front because that's not good strategy. So there'll be a couple of attempts, but for most part, it'll stay a little bit more contained, especially if it's like a Masters Championship, There's going to guys be looking around and weighing, the odds. Yeah. So, and then the last couple of laps, what I used to always say is if you make it to the 5th lap, you pretty much made it because then those last 5 laps, it tends to be very structured and it slows down a lot. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Because it's contained, because you look around, you see who's there and you say, all right, this person can sprint. This person's just going to hang on the back of the wheel at the very end. And you know your competition, especially in a Masters Championship. You've raced the people that are racing beside you before. You don't people that are hanging out there after the 5th lap. You don't really have new people that are there that are going for the championship. So you're eyeing up your competition.
I was jazzed that you had 65 plus. I've even heard
that's for you.
Oh, good. I get to chase Bill Kerr. So I asked him, I said, are you going to race in a crit? I don't know if I'm doing any crits this year. I guarantee he'll be there. I guarantee it.
Everybody will be there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And what other kind of things are you going to have that day? The day of the crit.
For
Race
Avenue?
Out.
Yeah, we're reaching out to the people that had signed up previously to be there. Like I know that there was a local brewery that was going to be there. There was a couple other. Donegal's our title sponsor. Thank you to Donegal Insurance.
Donegal Insurance.
Yep. They will have a booth there with a nice little 10x10 canopy. Make sure you go check them out. Because we all know sponsors are super important to bike racing.
Yeah.
So
The demise of the Tour of Utah was lack of sponsors. And California when Amgen dropped. So, Laura, what's going on outside of this regional scene? I know it seems as though you have some connections there. So can you give us a little thumbnail sketch of what the heck's going on outside of our little world here relative to bike racing?
Yeah, I think we're all sort of, regional or like the bigger national sort of events, maybe we're all in the same boat. And that's in the past 2 years. I mean, things have evolved. And I think how people interact or what kind of things people go to or what sorts of things sponsors are looking for is somewhat different. Like, I don't know if you find this, Megan, but like now it's like a sponsor's not as apt to be like, oh, I'll just write you a check and I want my money or my name on things for the money. But it's like, what can we do to be involved? We want to bring employees out. Mm-hmm. We want some sort of auxiliary event to go with it. And like, that's different. That's evolved. And I'm finding that across the board and talking to other race directors or sort of brainstorming, like, how can we involve more of the community or how do we get riders out more as opposed to just go to the school and say hello to kids? It's like, is there something else that they can do to engage the community or reach out?
I think I saw in years past, Donegal actually had a sales representative there to talk about insurance.
Okay, yeah.
And probably kind of a little bit oriented towards the bicyclist guy.
Yeah.
You know, is my rack covered?
Yeah.
If my bike is hit from behind, kind of a thing. It's like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
What if I get rear-ended on the way home from the race? And I got a hitch mount.
Things that we're all worried about.
We do like a whole expo area for sponsors. And like one of our sponsors was the local equipment and tractor dealer. And last year they were cool to have just like a tent with their stuff in this. They're like, we think we want to do more. We want to like bring tractors out and do like touch a tractor and maybe do like face painting and stuff like that. And then also, like in the summer in Doylestown, I go down and we do community events and rides, and we teach kids to ride on the pump track. We partner with NICA, and that's like something people like sponsoring because it's involving more of the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have like a mini parade associated with every bike race and kill two birds. That way, if you go to the City Fathers and you go, hey, look, we want to have a parade and a bike race.
Well, it's
because they get them in the right tone. Parade.
That citizens lap I talked about, it was the newspaper in Bucks County that sponsored it, and that's what they wanted to call it, a bike parade. And everyone was like,
"Why not?
Why are we calling it that?" But that's what they wanted. But maybe that's part of you're thinking
the mentality.
Man.
One of the cool things that if you just saw that Walmart is now the title sponsor of the Joe Martin stage race.
That's so huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's the whole Bentonville thing and what they're doing, man. And they did it right.
I'd be curious to see if that does anything or has any like traction in bringing cycling. Like we don't have the cycling culture here that they have in Europe. It's not the appeal. You know, people aren't going to races on the weekend and hanging out. I used to live in Belgium and like every Sunday we'd watch a race on TV or we'd go somewhere. Like that's what we would do. But that's not the thing
Have
here.
some frites and some beer.
Totally. Chocolate mousse on a Sunday. But that doesn't exist here. But I think, too, cycling is awesome because it's so accessible. Like, it's free to go to these races. And you can literally, like, touch a rider and talk to a rider.
And they'll be happy to talk to you.
Other sort of sporting events can you go to for free and interact with
Wolfgang was making that point, and that's so valid.
Oh, yeah.
That's what got me into cycling. Not until I was 35 or whatever. But like I was so amazed that in those days we had Norba races all over the place. And it was the big thing, mountain bike racing. And so you could go to these events and you could, see John Tomac, get his autograph, talk to him. And then you could ride the exact same equipment.
Totally.
And so what other sport can you, and you could ride the same track that he's riding. Talk about like so much fun.
Yes.
And like your bike parade, what other sport can you literally ride the same course?
As
the professionals?
And that's what
you're on the pro road tour, so literally it's professionals.
That was what's so cool about Reading 120.
That's where a crit's a little different because a lot of times you like change the traffic flow and you close the streets and stuff, so you couldn't necessarily go out and ride on your own. But with a road race, like once that course is up, like you can go out and ride.
So I was all kitted up on the Reading 120 and with a group that was sort of out front. And like kids didn't know that we were pros. So cool.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
Incognito.
And they cheered for us. It's like, they don't know.
And you didn't let on your word. No way.
Okay, good. What are we going to do in March? What's coming up? What's the first thing that we should start thinking about for road racing? Nothing.
I
Just
think
train.
Jim
In this
Wilson's.
area?
I mean, my
Jim Wilson's
my
at the end of
Fondo,
March, right?
yep.
Yeah.
The last Sunday in March.
Cool.
And it's starting and ending from Lehman Volvo, which is where he works, and then Home Cycling over in Mechanicsburg is doing the on-site support and helping out a little bit with that event. So that's done by Blue Mountain Velo and Lehman Volvo are putting that together. So
Good stuff. We can all do that.
yeah, I mean that's just a fun ride. There's no timing of that. Take your time. There's a metric century, a 33-mile route, and then a 12-mile family fun route because a lot of Lehman Volvo's customers want to support Jim and they can't get out and ride 35 miles like we all can. So we've got a nice little 12-mile through the neighborhood family fun route. So, and all proceeds go to Gavin, Gavin Robertson,
Yes.
over in his cancer research at Penn State Health.
Yeah.
So
Good.
and that was Jim's choice because he and Gavin are neighbors. So
I think just what you said, like having the different routes, that's something as like race promoters and also as teams that we need to think about is just like cycling is for everyone. And it's like, if you're riding the 5-mile route or you're riding the 100-mile, like just that all those people are,
they're all on a bike.
They're all part of it. They're all on a bike. Like
They're all having fun with their knees in the breeze,
Totally. Yeah.
getting exercise, and trying to be a better version of themselves.
Yeah.
And that's really what this sport is about.
yeah. And that's something we all have to remember because I think it can be intimidating going back to saying like racing a crit. If I haven't raced a crit, like that can be intimidating going. But also it's like, oh, I just have this bike I've had in the garage for 20 years. But during COVID, I rode around the neighborhood and I like that. And should I go do this fun ride? And it's like, yes, you should.
Yes.
Like, we want you here. Yes.
That's what, that was the Chris Hornerism too. And he said, just have a Grand Fondo, just get people
Totally.
out on a Grand Fondo.
Yeah.
And that leads to one
Yeah.
thing, which leads to another. Like up here, Nikki puts on the tour of Lebanon County, which is kind of like a Grand Fondo-ish thing. That's just circling back to the gravel thing. It's really easy to put on a gravel ride compared to a road race. I don't know if the non-race promoter understands that. Like gravel's easy, man. You don't even have to mark shit, right? How many races?
Give them
And timing, it's Strava, so
give them a GPX file and tell them to go.
Yeah. And it's a totally different vibe
and
too.
plus you can charge. You get away with charging $90 for that.
Yeah.
For all that nothingness. It's like, man,
Yeah.
why would you want to promote a road race when you can do that?
Right.
But it is
Good
tough
question.
to find.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
How many events did I say we were doing? Let's possibly add one or two.
Did you say 7? Including
Yes.
Jim Lane,
Yes.
Jim Wilson?
7.
Yeah. I don't think
Ask
you
me in a
named them
month.
all.
Ask me in a month though.
All right. Do you have any job openings? Long time productions, man. This is sounding pretty cool.
Can you set up gantry rigging?
No,
And do you know anything about audio video?
no.
I got somebody. Send your resume into my people and we'll talk.
Though I would like to do a podcast from one of your races. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
We did that last year. That was cool. All the PRT races got together and we did a listen live and it traveled from race to race across the country. And it was all day during the race. It's Brad Soner, the race announcer.
Yeah.
He had a little booth set up next to the announcing thing and he's bringing riders in and community members and sponsors. And it's awesome.
You
We're going
could
to
do it
that
from
again.
Jim's ride, and then you could talk to like the general public too.
You're welcome to come to Doylestown and be on
We'll
that.
give you a booth. Just
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There you go, Josh.
have
Got some
podcast will travel.
future podcast material. Wow, it was good talking to everybody here, and it's always motivational for me because I got a lot of things. But again, I will say, as we got from the Jason Romero podcast, just his thing was people ask him all the time, yeah, geez, I'd really love to run a marathon, but I don't know. And he would always say, just sign up. Because once you sign up, it becomes reality and your mind changes. And it's like, okay, I'm doing that. And that becomes a thing then.
And
So I urge everybody to go out and sign up for these races.
in our criteriums, the Cat 4-5s typically don't pull. So, I mean, you're going to get out there and you're going to ride, unless it's obviously a dangerous situation, but we've tried to work with USAC officials to say, hey, these guys are just starting out. They want the experience. Just let them ride the bike. Let them get out there and get their full 45 minutes in and just do it.
I do have a small cautionary note to that effect. And it is, even though they're 5 and they haven't raced any and they don't have a resume, a lot of these people are on Zwift and they have really nice bikes and they're really strong.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sound like a snob, but I don't often see the commensurate bike handling skills or knowledge of the peloton. So that's a little different than it was, 4 or 5 years ago. So these guys are coming out, new bikes. I'm a Cat 5. I'm going to do it. I'm like ripping. My FTP is like 290. And then all of a sudden you put them in a pack and everything changes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got any comment on that? Or do you think that's a real thing?
I can see that happening. I also know that Mike Dupay from USA Cycling down here in Lancaster has always been very, very good as the lead official, explaining things and keeping the peloton under control. And that's partly why there's 6 USAC officials at criteriums for that particular reason. And that's
nice point. Yeah.
I mean, and that's their job to help keep everybody safe. I mean, it's everybody's job to keep everybody safe, right? And it's also the riders should be doing their homework.
Yeah.
Right? We're adults. You got to hold them accountable and responsible to understand what a race is and not just what a Zwift is. Because I Zwift from time to time when it's raining outside. And you can ride right through people.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But you can't do that in real life. It's a little different, right? They might get a little mad. I don't know. You can't rhyme up the back of them. But you were saying Trainer Road, and I know they've done podcasts on pelotons and criteriums and safety. And I believe we need to hold the riders accountable to pay attention to that part of the racing too, because racing is a big component. It's not just fitness, but it's also etiquette and tactics and strategy and safety, like you said. But that's also why there's masters categories for 65 plus.
Yeah, all of that makes it so much fun too. Which also I circle back to again about, so you get on a club or a team, and even if you're a club member, you begin to understand that our obligation is to keep racing going in America, because maybe my son over here is going to become Sepp Kuss and then maybe get a shot at the Olympics, and he's going to be competing with Europe. And just like any other thing, we want to do it the best we can do it. And so if you participate in the club race thing, even though you're not going to race necessarily, you become aware of what goes into a race, how to marshal a race. And then the awareness, that mindfulness gets transmitted to everybody in the club. And then you're going to put on a race. And so everybody has that mindfulness. And we don't want to get hurt. We want to do this right, and you got to know how to be in the peloton. Remember old Tuesday nights, or that's turned into Wednesday nights? They were great for that, right? Because it was basically a crit. And I think you have the same thing in Trexlertown, right around there. You have a Thursday night crit or something.
At the Rodale,
Rodale, right. Yeah. And the deal is that every night we were out there once a week, riding bumper to bumper, really close. And that's a lot of hours doing that. And I don't know if that's getting done right now, because of that whole breakdown of that whole club, sponsor a race, team thing. And
you had said, and I said Blue Mountain Velo has 60 members. Well, they're not all race members.
Right.
We have a lot that are club members, but in our bylaws, we state that we would like every single member, club or race, to help out with our races.
Yeah.
It could be, if you can't be day of, that's fine. I got a ton of work that needs to be done. But we had people that had never raced a bike before that had a blast being a corner marshal at the Hummelstown Criterium. Because they get to experience that racing, and they don't want to get out there and race. That's not what they do. But they learned about racing just by osmosis, by watching it. And I think that's really, really valuable to be able to look at it and see the racing. So
and they're participating in a greater sense about the whole bicycle awareness, racing as a way of life, riding as a way of life. And it just spreads that awareness and that mindfulness, and it's good stuff. It's just a heck of a lot of fun for all of us, and we just want other people to enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Like, yeah, I've raced and you've raced. And
No,
it's-
I never raced.
Oh, never mind. Then
No
take that
plans
back.
to.
Let me take that back.
No, but that doesn't, and that
No, I
maybe
know,
that's a
but-
good example too. Like I've never raced, but I run a race and I
Yeah.
help with races. But that's good too because I think I came in with fresh eyes and a different sort of perspective. And it's like, how does someone who doesn't race but just likes to ride? How do you get them
Right.
interested and involved?
I mean, I've raced, I've done all right, but I like putting on races because then I get to have 150, 200 people with a smile like you have right there
Totally.
on your face
Yeah.
talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to me, and that's super fun, and it's bigger than me.
You put on the Winter's Warlock Revenge is such a fun time. And, you know, you took ownership for that and you were smiling. Both you guys were walking around smiling. And then that just spreads from one person to another. And before long, everybody's around the fire, having something to eat, having a drink, and just smiling. And like Wolfgang says, talking bike racing. For that moment, you know,
Nothing else matters.
Nothing else matters for
The
that
laundry
moment.
that you have to do at home or the honey-do list, you know, you're just with your friends talking about being on two wheels.
Is that what they're called? Honey-do lists? Huh?
Yeah. I'm sure you have one somewhere.
Sure, I just haven't. I gotta get home and dust it off, I think. So, great chat. Would love to do this again, eh?
Yeah,
And,
yeah, awesome.
So, is there anything that you guys want to leave us and all the people joining in on the podcast with?
Go sign up for races.
And if you don't race and sign up for races, come out and volunteer or come out and watch because we need bodies there too. Just
We need
show the
people cheering
communities
with
it's
cowbells.
viable. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap. As we always say, you know what I always say, right? Besides peace out, long live long rides and races.
Races.